Our next reader is Jen Grow. Jen Grow is the fiction editor of the arts and literary journal Little Patuxent Review. Her fiction and nonfiction have appeared in the Writer's Chronicle, Other Voices, The Sun Magazine, the GSU Review, Hunger Mountain, Indiana Review, and many others, including the anthology City Sages, Baltimore. She co-authored the book Seeking the Spirit with Henry Brunette. She's received 2 individual artist awards from the Maryland State Arts Council, and her stories have earned nominations for the Best New American Voices and a Pushcart Prize. Her story collection, Okay Goodbye, was shortlisted for the St. Lawrence Book Award, the G.S. Sharat Chandra Prize for Fiction, and the Spokane Prize. Please welcome Jen Grow.
Thanks, Deborah and John, for asking me to read. It's great to be here, and I am going to read a chapter. I've edited a little bit to fit in the time frame, but I'm going to read a chapter from a book I just finished writing. It's actually nonfiction, and it actually chronicles a period of my life where a lot of change happened in a very short period of time. And this chapter is about looking for work, one of my least favorite things to do, and walking the dog. So, wordless questions. I was supposed to be job hunting, except I kept getting sidetracked by the dog. Walking Ellie became my full-time occupation, or rather, preoccupation. She was great for the soul, but not so good for my career. How could I look for work when I was outside playing with the dog? I told myself that by walking Ellie, I was learning valuable lessons, that I was exercising my spirit as much as my body. But under the surface, I worried. Money was tight. My confidence was slumping. I needed to find a job soon, preferably work that suited me, work that was more than just a means to an end, but also kept me engaged. Sometimes I visited a labyrinth near my home. I'd walk the labby, as my friend Chuck says, when I had concerns I needed to unravel. I'd bring Ellie along and she'd wait patiently beside the path. She'd watch me with her deep brown eyes while I walked in a circle to the heart of the labyrinth. I'd take off my shoes to connect with the earth and make my way across the stones, slowly feeling every leaf and stem and clump of dirt. It was my journey to the interior. I'd breathe slowly and deeply and let the process of turning back and forth in a circle, of getting lost in a small maze of rocks, work to unwind my thoughts. I never came away from the labyrinth with an exact answer, but a sense that an answer was coming. It was an intuitive process. I was tracing a path that Ellie couldn't really understand, just as she had her own trail to follow when she'd get a whiff of something in the woods. She'd keep her nose to the ground and track the scent of it back and forth, her instincts carrying her in a way I couldn't follow. My journey was inward, Ellie's was outward, but they were both primal and instinctual in their way. Joseph Campbell's cure for confusion was simply this: follow your bliss. I had it taped to my refrigerator as a reminder, but I had no idea what it meant. Sure, intellectually I could tell you how important it was to be true to yourself, but in practice I was confused. What exactly was my bliss? Could I have more than one? I'd spent so much time being interested in everything and everyone around me that I hadn't taken time to consider my own true north. Consequently, my bliss flitted aimlessly from fascination to fascination. It changed monthly, yearly. For a while, I painted and worked in collage. Then I took drumming lessons and knitted scarves. I swam laps, kayaked, wrote stories and bad poetry. I practiced meditation and Reiki. I ran half marathons, ran retreats, traveled abroad, cooked soup. My bliss was easily swayed. I obsessed over writers, music, or movies, over boyfriends or ex-boyfriends, or men in general, until finally I met my favorite obsession, my dog. My bliss, whatever shape it took, was also confused by all the shoulds I felt in my life. I should exercise more. I should be more generous with my time. I should floss more. I shouldn't watch so much TV. I should get up early in the morning. For that matter, I shouldn't stay up so late, and so on. But wait a minute. Who made up these rules? And why was I even paying attention? Follow your bliss sounds great, as long as you know what your bliss is. I decided to follow my dog. Ellie was content roaming the woods, sniffing leaves, searching for clues, unraveling mysteries with her nose. I decided to try the same thing. I took my half-formed questions about my future into the woods. I inhaled the sun, smelled the air, listened to birds, and waited for something to make sense, for reasoning to come forth. I'd sit by a stream and wait for my answer, much like one would consult the I Ching or travel to a mountaintop to ask a decrepit wise man about the secret of life. I'd watch the water carry a leaf or a stick, see the ripples change shape, and listen intently for some wisdom to spill forth. In nature, you can count on things being themselves in their wholeness. You can count on their truth. Hawks don't question the timing of migration. The sun doesn't doubt its ability to shine. I, on the other hand, was in need of direction. My questions were large with an overarching theme. What did I really want for myself? How should I go about changing my life? Yet, I couldn't even assemble the right words for these questions. My brain was crammed with half-formed thoughts. What would happen? How should, and then what if, and where? They were a loop of unanswerables, at least from where I stood. Every day was an adventure in not knowing. Sure, I'd grown through a lot of grief and depression, but now I was left with what exactly? My own life? And who was I now? Rumi, the great poetic mystic, says it more succinctly. All day I think about it, and then at night I say it. Where did I come from? And what am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea. My soul is from elsewhere, I'm sure of that. Not knowing is a constant. Ellie would lead me through it. She'd follow the scent of other animals through the brush, or else lie down in the stream to cool off, and I'd sit on a giant piece of granite to listen and wait. I'd stare at the water and hear its quiet murmur as it flowed across the sand and small rocks, making a conversation all its own. More than once, the water reminded me to let go of outcomes. It showed me how all things move eventually. We all travel on our way to becoming something else, it said. Not being able to see around the next bend, that's what was so frustrating. For me, many years before, when I'd been traveling South America, my companions and I toured the town of Copacabana, Bolivia, to see the 16th century shrine, the Basilica of Our Lady of Copacabana. The shrine was a destination. Many Bolivians drove to the small town on the shore of Lake Titicaca to have their cars blessed by Our Lady of Copacabana. She was the patron saint of Bolivia. Getting to Copacabana was the hard part. First, you had to cross Lake Titicaca by ferry, then drive an hour or so along a gravel mountain road with blind turns and steep cliffs. The road itself was only wide enough for 1.5 vehicles, which was nerve-wracking when our driver sped around these sharp turns. I closed my eyes, held tight to the seat, and prayed we wouldn't meet another vehicle that was coming in the opposite direction. There weren't any guardrails, so at any moment, our truck could have fallen several hundred feet off the side of the mountain. Crosses dotted the road and countryside where other people in cars and buses had not been so fortunate. To add to the anxiety, our driver did not brake often. He honked sometimes when we approached a blind bend, but he didn't slow down or wait in case another vehicle might honk back at us. One of my companions, a German backpacker named Laszlo, became carsick. I felt horrible for him, but we couldn't stop. There was nowhere to pull over. So we barreled forward. Laszlo became paler and paler. Soon, I wasn't feeling well either. I don't normally get motion sickness, but it was the long drive in the stuffy car that was doing it. Not just the drive, but the blind and reckless turns that made me nauseous. And not just the turns either, but the fear of the unknown. I didn't speak Spanish. I couldn't communicate with the driver, nor could I drive the truck on this road. I couldn't stop my companion Laszlo from feeling poorly. I couldn't be sure that we'd even make it to Copacabana. I had no control. This was the root of my discomfort. We did eventually arrive in Copacabana. We toured the basilica and stood reverent at the statue of the saint. Outside the basilica, we saw cars lined up to be blessed, and we watched with a different kind of awe as flower petals were strewn across the hoods of these cars and buses. We toured the town, bought knitted dolls, and ate sauteñas. Then we got back in the truck and traveled along the same road, on the same mountain, around the same blind curves on our return to La Paz. I prayed the whole time. I was not even conscious of my prayers, but every breath was a wish to the divine that I'd live to see the next breath. That's the feeling I remembered as I careened toward my new life. I didn't know what came next. All my confusion and half-formed questions were prayers for help. I was searching for safe passage around blind bends. I wanted to drive. At the same time, I kept my eyes closed. I didn't want to steer myself toward the change that was coming. The ancient Greeks called my state of mind akrasia, that is, doing something against one's better judgment. In my case, I was not doing something. I was not looking for work as rigorously as I might. I was succumbing to that very powerful human impulse to delay what needs to be done in favor of settling for another, more immediate reward. Sometimes my reward was perverse, the chance to watch really bad reality TV all evening and then lay awake at night in bed. On some level, I preferred worrying to actually doing something. More often than not, though, my reward was the chance to spend time with my dog. In his article later, James Surowiecki sees procrastination as stemming from a lack of confidence, sometimes alternating with unrealistic dreams of heroic success, unquote. That might be true. With me, it was also a complex mix of fear, ambition, and inner conflict. I was caught in the crossfire of that ongoing battle, me against me, and I was losing. Then again, maybe I was just experiencing a midlife crisis. I was a middle-aged member of Generation X, that nomadic, late-blooming, overlooked generation often maligned as slackers and underachievers. It wasn't just me, a whole generation of us embodied, quote, a casual disdain for authority and structured work hours, unquote, as one researcher put it. We were reserved about our own ambition. We'd morphed into adults with lateral career paths and a wistful curiosity about the professional road not taken. Quote, how can a generation whose cultural trademark is a refusal to grow up have a midlife crisis, writes A.O. Scott. I was bearing out the conundrum of my peers. Maybe my procrastination was really a healthy rejection of workaholism. Maybe my desire to spend time with my dog was symbolic of my generation's collective desire to live a more fulfilling life. I was in the hallway, literally. I was in the hallway, getting ready to leave to meet friends. I was leaning against the hall wall, eating a pear, and looking out my hall window where my cat Francine had made herself comfortable on the sill. I was gazing across the yard to my neighbor's house. My neighbor, his wife, and their 2 daughters were playing on their lawn. It was a warm evening. The crickets were chattering to each other. I was in a yearning mood, a mood full of seeing what I didn't have. So it startled me when I felt a sense of peace while watching my neighbors, the little girls squealing and rolling down the hill. I hope my neighbors know how lucky they are, I thought. I hope that they're present for this beautiful moment and they can enjoy it all. As soon as I thought it, another voice spoke. Look how calm and lovely her life is as she leans against the wall and eats a pear. I hope she knows how lucky she is. I hope she can be present to enjoy it. I was startled. I'd rarely seen myself from the outside, and I was surprised to be relaxed in the moment for an instant. Despite my worry and procrastination, I could be at peace. When I was in the moment, I was okay, better than okay. I had a great life. I just failed to notice it. I heard a story many years ago about a woman who came upon a butterfly that was slowly emerging from its cocoon. The butterfly had freed one wing from its pupal casing and was struggling to free its other wing. The woman studied the butterfly for several minutes but didn't see any movement. Nothing changed. It seemed to her that the butterfly was stuck, struggling and unable to free itself. She wanted to help, so she picked up the cocoon and brought it home. She found a pair of scissors and very gently cut through the cocoon's silky, fibrous webbing to free the butterfly's other wing. She was careful not to cut through the wing. And she didn't, but when the butterfly was finally free, it was lopsided. The butterfly couldn't take flight because the newly freed wing was too heavy and wasn't fully extended. It turns out a butterfly needs to squeeze through its casing. It is the tight struggle that cleanses the butterfly's wing of a microscopic substance that adheres to the wing during incubation in the cocoon. The struggle, in other words, is part of the process. Without it, the butterfly cannot become itself. And yet, the process is so slow and impenetrable, I'm pretty sure, or so slow and imperceptible, I'm pretty sure even the caterpillar has no idea it's becoming a butterfly. That was me, slow to emerge. I'd freed myself from my cocoon one dog walk at a time. It was my daily discipline. I needed the walks as much as Ellie. She kept me on schedule. In the afternoons around 4:30, she'd rise from her bed and stand next to me. Her tail would swirl in a helicopter wag, and she'd look at me expectantly, maybe flutter her long eyelashes at me, pant and smile. She'd wait patiently, even when I didn't get up right away. If too much time elapsed and I was still engaged with a project, she'd bark, once, just to let me know things were serious and that she really needed to go outside. If I was completely consumed in some task and I ignored her, she might paw my leg and bark again. Really, I mean it, she seemed to say. Ellie knew when it was time to go outside. She knew when it was time to put one foot in front of the other, take one step, any step, in the right direction. She was leading me through the unknown, one dog walk at a time, toward answers to all of my wordless questions.